Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows, giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dr. Sem Yankees Show. Today is Saturday, May the 10th, 2025, and let's make today a great day. How do you make your day great? It's easy. You know this. You look around. You find the things that are good in life, and then you appreciate them. You look around and you say, you know, it is a good day because there's all these good things that are happening. There are all these good things that are around me. Then you can make your day even better by perpetuating the goodness, by giving the goodness to others. And if by some chance you cannot find anything that's great, there's nothing good, you say. I can't find anything good. Well, you can then be an agent of good. Do something nice for somebody else. And when you do that, then there's good. You just found it. You created it. And when you create good, then you can appreciate some of the good that's around you. Remember, when we give love, it comes back to us in greater amounts than we ever gave. And speaking of love, tomorrow is Mother's Day. And so, 3 of the most powerful words in the entire language are, I love you. Use those 3 words and tell them to your grandmother, to your mother, to your wife, to the important women in your life. Let them know you appreciate them. Wish them all a happy Mother's Day. And from me to all of them, I wish all of you a happy Mother's Day. Just a reminder that the Dr. Sem Yankees Show is brought to you by Artemisia Publishing. Artemisia is a traditional publisher located in the United States of America. You can find their vast selection of books at apbooks.net. Of course, they have numerous titles written by me, including the least among them, 365.2, Scattering the Ashes, and From Compton to the Bronx. And a reminder, of course, to check out all of our articles. We put up 3 articles every single day, 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and 2 p.m. Plus, when the Yankees are playing, we have a game thread. And then following every game, we have a quick hit, except we don't always have a quick hit when the Yankees are playing on the West Coast, as they are now. Quick word. I just started reading J.B. Mannheim's Field of Schemes. I told you about this book last week. It's the 6th book of a continuing series. And like all other 5 books, it's terrific. And my hope is that we're going to have KP Wee on, author of Baseball Card Heroes. He and I are trying to work out a time for him to take part in a podcast. Hopefully next week, he might be my guest to talk about his new book, Baseball Card Heroes, next week. But ladies and gentlemen, I've had many guests. I've had many friends on this show, but today we have my favorite guest of all time. One of, how do you quantify it? But one of the 4 most important people in my life. I mean, if I do that, then I'm excluding mom and dad. So one of the 6 most important people of my life. But if I do that, I'm excluding my 2 grandkids. One of the 8 most important people of my life. No, I'm just kidding. I'm getting them angry there behind the scenes. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce the wonderful, the terrific, the brilliant, my wonderful son, Ethan Semendinger. Ethan, how are you?
I'm doing well, Dad. How are you?
I'm doing well. Now, Ethan, of course, is the technical genius behind Start Spreading the News. He's also a writer. He does most of our quick hits. He contributes articles, probably about 1 or so a week. And he's come up with many great series of articles, including on trophies. He, what do we call the, I just lost the name. The Shreddinator, what the Boltinator?
Oh, the Determinator. It was a passion project of mine for a number of years there, looking at statistics and how we could try to expect players to do in the years forward. It has since gone by the wayside. I lost credit to Microsoft Excel because they were really the founders behind that. But maybe it'll come back someday.
Well, you also were not working full-time when you were writing the Determinator series, and you've been a very successful teacher. And that series took you tons of hours at a very busy time in the school year when people just don't have that kind of time to devote to long statistical analysis and deep articles and things like that.
Yes, it was a passion project. Let's put it lightly. I loved the Determinator, but I also saw lots of flaws in it with a lot of the way we look at statistics in today's world, especially with baseball. I think one thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to create a metric that was encompassing of the whole realm of baseball, offensive, defensive, pitch. I never got into pitchers, but how base running played a role in it. And what I found is that I was always looking in the past. I wasn't ever trying to project forward. And I found that a lot of the times the Determinator was a great metric to show maybe who should have won awards, who should have won something in the last year or last few years, but it wasn't good enough in my estimation at trying to tell you who was going to be the next MVP. And that was my big hope.
Yeah, but
be fair,
listen, you are a scientist. You're representing Lafayette College. You have the hat and the baseball jersey on, and I mean, one of the principal components of science, right, is you have a theory, you test the theory, and some of the greatest scientific discoveries are theories that don't necessarily pan out, but you find out that this doesn't work, and that's almost as important as figuring out what does work. And I think you did the Determinator for 3 or 4 years, no?
So yeah, something like that. I think.
And 3. So you realized as a predictive tool, as a predictor, it wasn't great.
And that's what I try to teach my students every day. I teach 7th and 8th grade science, as you know, and I try to show them that in the real world we can put our minds to trying to discover things, and scientists do this in all facets of life, be it studying statistics, be it trying to look at treatments for diseases and cures, looking at the foods we put in our bodies, right? We never will know everything. And so it's through the process of trial and error, and maybe sometimes failing and learning from our mistakes and learning from the things we've done in the past, that we're better able to round ourselves as learners and individuals and scientists. And having that background is what will help propel us to great heights and to learning about the new great discoveries and maybe someday a new great sabermetric formula.
Right, because there have been numerous sabermetric formulas that Bill James and Jay Jaffe and all sorts of people have come up with that really never caught on. And then, I had a discussion with Bill James a number of years ago, both on Twitter and then offline in emails. And Bill James is not a big proponent of war. He says there's too many gray areas in it, but for whatever reason, war has caught on. But we don't even have a war statistic that's agreed. You have F war, you have B war, et cetera. So even war is a statistic that is not, truly defined and agreed upon between Fangraphs, Baseball Reference, and as such, the baseball community. So,
exactly.
All right, and just for the people out there who may not understand what it's like to be a school teacher, when I talk about Ethan not having a whole lot of time, those first few years that you teach, especially, but really for the dedicated school teacher, there is no time. If your job is going to be to educate kids and to be enthusiastic and to give them unique and special and timely and relevant information, you're spending your time once you come home from work looking at papers, doing research, planning new lessons. And all of that is unbelievably time consuming. It's a great job. Obviously, I loved it when I was a teacher and I loved being a principal. But the idea that, oh, he's a teacher, he gets out at 3:00 is such a misnomer. It's one of those things that people just do not understand. You don't have free time when you're a teacher.
And well, yes. to briefly summarize it, yes. But I think this is a similar parallel we'd see in the world of athletics, right? We look at these individuals, these athletes, and we say, oh, what a great life that must be, right? They're making millions of dollars. They have fame, fortune, anything they'd ever want is given to them on a silver platter. I correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to be flying to California every other week. I don't want to be living on the road for half the year, flying down. I love Florida, but I don't want to be there for 2 months randomly. Just okay, and then you're back up here. There's a lot that we look at and we try to diminish and say, oh, how easy it is that these people's lives are, be it education, be it athletics, be it being, the greatest individual ever, right? And I think when we take a step back and we really look at the parts that make it whole, it becomes a much bigger taking on than we would expect.
Ethan, you know this story, but I went to college a long time ago in the 1980s, and my major was going to be communications. And my whole idea was I was going to be a sportscaster. And my high school had live sports. I was doing live sports on TV long before anybody my age was doing live sports. I announced I was the voice of Midland Park High School basketball. I did the boys' games and the girls' games live. I was ready to pursue that career. And I read a lot of books from broadcasters. I remember Warner Wolf's autobiography specifically. And I studied the trajectory of all the people who made it big. And I looked at the life they lived. And basically it was, you get out of college, you get on some small town radio station somewhere, working the overnight, sweeping the floors and cleaning bathrooms and doing odd jobs. And you wait for the one day when the overnight guy isn't in and they say, hey, floor sweeper guy, you have a degree in this, right? You're going on. And then you eventually get an overnight show. And maybe that goes well enough that you get the 8 to midnight slot. But you're living in, someplace far away. It's not where you want to spend your life. You're aspiring to New York. Finally, you might catch the attention of a bigger outlet. You might be back on overnights, and then you're living in, I don't know, St. Louis as a big step. And then maybe you go to Chicago, and then maybe you go to New York. But then even beyond that, I thought, boy, if I could be the Yankees announcer, what a dream that would be, until I thought about being a dad and raising a family. And I said, I'm going to go to work right as my kids are coming home. And then I'm going to come home and they're going to be awake when I'm sleeping. And I thought, as glamorous as that life would have been, I wanted to be Warner Wolf. I used to do the sports cast on my high school TV show. We had a live news show that went out and I used to do, let's go to the videotape. I copied that from Warner Wolf. But I realized I don't want that kind of life. No matter how much fame and fortune and everything that goes with it that might have entailed, it wasn't worth it to me because I wanted to live a more normal life and raise little boys who became wonderful young men like yourself. So, right, like you have to make choices in life. Let's talk a little Yankees here. We're getting way off the beaten track. The fault of that is all mine, of course. But Max Fried go on.
I was gonna say we could to translate this easily, right? We make decisions, we work jobs, and in order to get to that point, we have to struggle. And one person who everyone knows as a Yankee did this was J.C. Escara, right? Uber driver, minor league player for X amount of years. And then what happened this week? Finally, a couple weeks ago, he hits his first major league home run. And then just the other day, hits the walk-off. It was a sacrifice fly, but a win's a win. And now you've seen finally all this struggle pay off. He is the reason they won that game at the very end. And so, yeah, are there tough moments? Are there great moments? With everything there is in life. And he right there is the embodiment of that in the current moment, right? Look at what he was able to finally accomplish. And I'm sure if you asked him, just like I'm sure if you ask anybody, right? Are you proud of what you've done? And are you willing to do that same struggle time in, time out? Are you willing to grade papers for 6 hours after work and immediately get right to lesson planning? Of course I am. And if you ask him, I'm sure his answer would be the same, right? Of course
Correct.
I'm willing to put the struggle in, be an Uber driver because it worked for me. I'm finally here and I get to do what I want and get what I love. And
but again, thing. It's not saying that it's an easy job. People, you're just playing baseball for a living. It's the farthest thing. Exactly. And I'm not saying you don't work long hours. I mean, you lived in this house. Your daddy was always at work and he was always answering emails and he was always going to events at school and doing all that. But there's a difference between working 24/7, 365 days a year to be engaged in your school community or whatever your job is, and moving every couple of years from place to place and having no continuity and being a baseball player. And as you say, flying to Florida for 2 months, then you come home for 3 days, then you fly out to St. Louis, and then you come home for a week, and then you're now flying back out to the West Coast for a week and a half, and then you're coming back home, and then you're traveling to Boston, and it's a rigorous life, and you're living out of a suitcase. It's not something I would want. And obviously I made that decision a long time ago. Not that I was good enough to play, but I was good enough. They all told me to, maybe I could have done it as a broadcaster, but that's neither here nor there. And I have no regrets whatsoever. But Ethan, Max Fried, 8-0.
Yes.
What's your opinions of Max Fried?
If you ask me, he is, and I've been reading articles on MLB.com. I read through tons of stuff online every day. Reddit, this blog, that blog. I see so many people saying the best offseason signing this year is Pete Alonso. And for the Mets, that might be, but I think the best signing in the offseason, without a doubt, is Max Fried. He has set himself up in a different standard with especially the Yankees' biggest need. They do not have a solid or a solidified starting rotation to this point. And with Garrett Cole getting hurt, and the Yankees needed someone to step up and take that role. And we've seen the struggles of Carlos Rodon for what it's worth. He's been pitching better as of late. I think he had 2 good games in a row. And we are just hoping that he's going to be able to continue that. Carlos Rodon, we've seen before, can be the ace of a bullpen or ace of a staff. But Max Fried right now is showing that he is that new number 1 guy in New York.
100%. I was asking EJ on the Start Spreading the News podcast, airs Monday night, 9 p.m. on this same network, if Max Fried had an argument to be the MVP, and he laughed at me. But take away Max Fried's 8-0 record, well, the Yankees 8-0 record in games he starts, and they're an under 500 ball club. So without Max Fried, this is a whole different team. And I understand Aaron Judge is having a great year, but that starting staff is a concern. Ethan, what other concerns do you have with the 2025 Yankees?
I think the biggest concern is the rotation. Beyond Fried, like we just said, Rodon is a question mark. He can be top of the game, greatest pitcher in the league. He can also be a guy that agitates you, gives you I'm like, why are you not able to do it tonight? Yeah, and then Will Warren, I like him as a kid. I like him as a pitcher. I think he's been pushed into a really tough situation. Um, just trying to not be. I think most rookie pitchers, especially guys who aren't drafted first overall out of college or drafted first overall out of high school, who don't have a large pedigree, I don't think they should be shunted into roles higher than being a 4 or 5 starter. And it seems like all of a sudden Will Warren's pitching as a third guy. I think he's been given a tough hand to start his career, and I could see him slowly improving with that, with lesser expectations. Clark Schmidt's back, but he's always been one of these guys you're worried about with injuries. Um, it's they just sent down Carlos Carrasco. Technically, they DFA'd him. He just made it to waved through and is now playing with AAA Scranton. So it's a rotation that has a lot of question marks, and I think that'd be the biggest pressing need. Around the rest of the team, I like the way it's built up. I love the depth at first base. I think Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt are a wonderful duo. Uh, I think Jazz Chisholm being hurt is going to show maybe the Yankees don't have as much infield depth as they originally thought. I don't know if I'm a huge believer in Oswald Peraza. I love Oswald Cabrera for his personality, but is he really a starting caliber MLB player? Is going to be shown, I think, for real this year. I think years past we've brushed it aside, saying maybe, maybe not. But I think this is really going to be the make or break year for him. They have a couple other guys. I think Volpe's a heck of a player. I think as a shortstop, he is defensively top tier. The outfield looks great. Grisham is proving his worth every day. I was just reading an article recently that said he was the second best player on the Yankees, just because of just what he's been able to do. And again, big home run the other day as a pinch hitter in the 8th inning. He's amazing. I'm loving Trent Grisham this year.
And didn't love him. I didn't love him a whole lot last year. Eth, give us. Well, I think you sort of did. You just went through some good things. So you've been a Yankee fan since you were a little kid. Tell us just one or two of your greatest Yankee or baseball memories of all time.
My best baseball memory would have to be the game I was able, and you brought me along with my grandparents, to Hideki Matsui's walk-off home run in 2009. I remember I would have been 10 years old. I think it was probably about the 6th or 7th inning. My grandmother wanted to go home. She said, "This game is too long. Let's go home." And I'm 10 years old. I was like, you can't take the magic out of a 10-year-old. It was a 1-1 game. I think A-Rod had scored an early run. The Orioles had scored an early run, and it was just a pitcher's duel. It was an absolute pitcher's battle. I remember just begging, like, "No, let's stay, let's stay, let's stay." Up until the bottom of the 9th, A-Rod steps up to the plate, and the entire stadium goes nuts. Everyone, he's going to do it. He's A-Rod. He's the greatest of all, greatest player on the team. I think he strikes out or something like that, or grounds into a ground ball to second baseman, and up steps Hideki Matsui, who's the fan favorite, my favorite player of all time, and he hit a 2-1. I think it was a 2-1 pitch, right? Hit it into right field, wins the game for the Yankees. And I don't think I will ever have a better baseball moment in my life. That was the best.
That's awesome. And yeah, that was so much fun. We stayed and they played New York, and Decky hits the walk-off grand slam. You get to see your hero perform in the biggest moment. And we had the sense that was going to be the last time we ever saw Hideki. It was 2009. We knew he was a free agent, and all the indications were that he wasn't coming back. The Yankees weren't going to bring him back. It was before his World Series heroics, and it was our last ticket of the year, as I believe. We had a small season ticket package back then. And so it was, this is it. This is probably the last time you'll get to see your favorite player. And he rises up not knowing that, of course, you were there. But in a way, you kind of think he does. And he gives you the ultimate thrill. And yeah, that's one of my favorite moments of all time.
Yeah, I think it's like people always talk about their favorite sports memories, and you can put yourself vividly in a place. And I think there's a lot of those that people could have where, I was at this amazing game. The Yankees scored 10 runs in the bottom of the 7th inning and they won. Not that I was there, but right, you have these games you remember, and I think having that as the core Yankee memory of my life, where it's my favorite player since I was pretty much old enough to think about baseball, be the one who was the hero at, again, the last game I would have ever seen him play live. It's absolutely amazing. It's something that I do not take for granted, the fact that I was fortunate enough to be in that situation to watch that happen.
Now, Ethan, you still play baseball, yes?
Yes, I do, as you know.
What uniform number do you wear?
55.
Oh, what uniform number did Hideki wear?
Hey, he was number 55. There is a reason behind that. Unfortunately, not on my eBay bought Lafayette jersey today. I think this is number 28. But when you try to find stuff through eBay, beggars can't be choosers.
No, but you've got a great collection of Lafayette gear. You've got football jerseys, soccer jerseys, basketball jerseys. I think a lacrosse jersey, maybe.
Softball. Yeah, I have a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
I try my best to represent my alma mater well.
Well, fantastic college, and it's quite an accomplishment to graduate from Lafayette, especially with a degree in something that's not easy, hard sciences, neuroscience major. So, yeah, I mean, that was 8 years ago or whatever it was at this point, but still, what a great accomplishment, Heath.
I love it.
Yeah, indeed, 100%. Hey, my dear friends, Ethan, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to wrap this up. Don't go away when the show is over, though, Heath. We have to stay on so the whole thing uploads, so that this can be shown and uploaded then to the Roku network and Northeast Streaming Sports and all those YouTube channels and wherever else it goes. So, my dear friends, everybody, thank you for watching. Ethan, thank you for being with me. This has been the Dr. Sem Yankees Show. Remember that the Start Spreading the News show airs every Monday night at 9 p.m. And 99% of the time, that show is actually live. EJ will not be with us this week because EJ's actually in New Jersey. And I, for the first time in my life, I'm actually going to meet EJ in person and his brand new little son on Monday. And he'll be in New Jersey when I meet him, so it'll be impossible. And he's flying home that night, so it'll be impossible for him to then be on the Start Spreading the News show. So maybe Ethan will join me, maybe Andy Singer, maybe Mike Whiteman, maybe Tim Cable. I might fly solo. We'll see what it is, but that'll all be figured out after Mother's Day. Remember, wish your mother and any important mother in your life the happiest of days and tell them that you love them. Thanks for watching. Have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports Podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast Podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand sports talk for America.